So 2020's been a wild year. Kind of seems like we're in the season 8 of Game of Thrones, but of real life right now. And this means that for most people, the past few months, whether it's being in quarantine or being away from work, was kind of the start of being alone with your thoughts for the first time ever and, staring into the endless void of emotions, time, and money that we call life, or, as we usually talk about it, people have had a lot of free time. On top of this, I've personally had what I would say is an even weirder year with an even greater amount of endless void staring than the average person. Over the past year, I've graduated college, moved halfway across the country to a city I'd never heard of before, and started a job as a software engineer for a big company. That wasn't the weird stuff, that was all fine. The annoying part was when I broke my back playing volleyball, left work for a month, fixed my back, returned to work, broke my back again, maybe dancing this time, but this time was actually right before a global pandemic that left me waiting literal months to be able to fix my back again, as surgery to be able to walk and sit and stand was not deemed life-threatening enough, which, I get it wasn't life-threatening, but it was lifestyle-threatening. So over the last 3 months, my void staring has been at an all-time high. I've basically been trapped on my couch in my studio apartment and, doing everything that comes with that. After watching basically every piece of streamable media available and reading quite a few books, my attention for consuming things from my couch was really starting to leave me, and I found myself getting extremely bored even when I was, watching a movie or reading a book or listening to podcasts, whatever. What did kind of save me from that boredom was this section of YouTube I found where indie video game developers share their devlogs, updates on their projects, and basically just kind of keep you updated on what their life as a part-time game developer is like. And I learned a lot from them, and I watched, tons and tons of videos. I got really into it. And the main thing that I noticed was that most of these people that I was watching that were making these cool videos, making these cool games, most of them were just hobbyists trying to make a game while working their real full-time job. And I kind of thought, hey, that's me right now. I'd like a hobby. But at the time, I didn't even have a full-time job because I was on disability leave. Since I'd been on disability leave for the second time, in this last year, I kind of wanted a project to keep me entertained and up-to-date skills-wise while I couldn't work. On top of that, I've always liked projects that mix software and visualization. I did a lot of work with processing projects in the past in my free time. And even on top of that, video games have always been a huge part of my life and still are. And then on top of all that, once again, I'd taken an Intro to Unity class in college, so I thought, let's kind of scoop all those things together and just, find something to fill the time, and we'll see where it goes, and if it's fun, keep doing it. If it's not fun, stop doing it, and if you make something cool, then, that's the best that can come out of it. So, then Dienos was born. I've always been a fan of the way Microsoft used to handle indie games on the Xbox 360. They gave tons and tons of interesting, low-budget games a platform, and there was one in particular that my friends and I used to love, which was called I Made a Game with Zombies in It. I don't know if it was popular or not, but I do know it was like a few dollars, and we played that game for, just like hours and hours and hours trying to finish it. Because it was legitimately challenging. Basically, the game was a twin-stick shooter where you fight off endless waves of pretty poorly animated zombies with pretty poorly animated guns. And you pick up power-ups, and you run around, and, you just see how long you can survive. The gimmick was that the soundtrack is front and center, and is what I always assumed was the developer yelling for about 15 minutes, the length of the game, over just kind of like shredding guitars and heavy metal breakdowns, that he made a game with zombies in it. The game was so simple, it was funny, it was fun, and it gave me and my friends countless hours of entertainment trying to beat it in one go and reach the end. So I thought maybe making something like that would be a great place to start. Technically looking at it, I didn't think it seemed too difficult, but it's crazy that you can have something that's not that difficult and it still give you countless hours of entertainment. So from there, I downloaded a bunch of free sprite sheets and assets and started to teach myself how to make a game. Progress has been very slow because I've only been able to work while laying down, basically, up until I recently was able to get my surgery and I've been back up on my feet. Another reason it's been slow is that as soon as I see something interesting to implement that I haven't learned yet, I usually get very invested in that, sometimes meaningless thing that doesn't add anything to the game, but it kind of stalls out everything else I'm working on too. But we're finally here, and I have, at least a full gameplay loop to show for it. Obviously, it's super unpolished, but it's a learning experience too, so I'm not too upset with the state it's in. The main thing I started with was just a character controller. I remembered from my Unity class that's always a good place to start. Make movement look good and feel good and all that. So I made one that allowed the player to look whichever way they're aiming and move in any direction regardless of that. And then from there I added shooting and some walking animations and created a small level that went through various iterations and looks for the player to move around in. I added 3 enemies to the game, first being obviously a blue dino, because, the name of the game is Dienos. For this guy, his thing is that he'll always follow you, and I tried to use a modified 2D nav mesh system that I found online to allow him to avoid the obstacles around the map and still be able to follow the player. As opposed to just following the player and getting stuck on things in between. I'm not too happy with how it turned out. He'll still get stuck on a lot of the geometry in the level, but I think overall it's better than just having a simple follow function. After that, the next enemy was the red dino. His thing is that unless he sees you, he'll stay completely still, but if he can see you, he'll sprint at you a little faster than the first guy, the blue dino. And then the third enemy added was a ranged enemy, just to mix things up a little bit. To keep the theme, the ranged enemy is a volcano, and it'll shoot, lava rocks at you and hit you if you stand still for too long, and it just kind of, I think, mixes up the enemy pool. So from there, once I had those enemies and I had my character controller and my map, I added a really simple game controller to randomly spawn enemies in increasing amounts wave after wave until you win or you die. The thing I've been working on over the past day or two is basically I've been adjusting the player's health system, starting with a health bar. The player's been able to die for a while now, but there was no kind of indication other than flashing white when getting hit by an enemy. So I started with the health bar, and to do this, basically I just created a few images in the UI, and one of them I tied directly to the amount of health the player has, and it'll scale horizontally based on how much health the player has. So if the player's health gets lower, the image will get smaller and lower to the right. To the left. After that, I got really into researching how post-processing works in Unity, and I still don't really understand a lot of it because there's so many render pipelines that have been used and will be used and are being used, especially if you're switching between 2D, which a lot of the stuff is still experimental, and then 3D, it's very fleshed out, but it uses completely different namespaces and commands, and it's a whole kind of other world of game development that I never really looked into before. I just used a very, very simple effect. Basically, I just tied the chromatic aberration effect in the post-processing package, which kind of mimics like separated color channels on faulty film, and I just basically tied the amount that effect is seen to the amount of health the player has. So as the player gets lower, the effect gets crazier and crazier, and it makes it look kind of like a little trippier, and you know, it makes you really want to find some health, which doesn't exist yet, but you know, now that we have all this stuff detailing how little health the player has in the game, I'm thinking health and other power-ups are going to be kind of next on the list. Alright, well, I think that's about all that I have to show at this point in development. I'm going to keep on working in the background. I don't know how much of that I'll be able to record and document to make another one of these videos. And I'm not sure how much I'll actually be able to get done because I'm heading back to work. I'm going to have a lot less void staring and a lot less free time on my hands. But coming up, I think the next steps for the game are to definitely fix a lot of the bugs that you're seeing play in the background while I'm playing through a couple rounds on my own. And then other than that, the actual additions I want to make are going to be health pickups, like I said before, and then some other player pickups that will, you know, give the player some more options, some more ways to take out Dienos. So thanks for sticking around. Maybe I'll make another one of these soon if you're interested, and if time's not permitting, then maybe I won't. But thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later.